Grumpy the T-Rex and the Crusty Underwear. A true story. I was an uncle at age 7. It was cool. When mom and dad had to work on Saturdays, my sister-in-law, Linda, would have to come over and babysit me and my sister, Kim. Kim was only 9, but you'd have thought she was full grown the way Linda gave her special treatment. She never had to take a nap, for one thing. Well, for one thing and every other thing. Linda would bring her 2 sons with her, though. Lee was a little older and Gary a little younger. I never used to hold my uncle status over their heads or anything. We hung out more like cousins. So my nephews and I developed a bit of a Saturday morning routine. The highlight of the day was watching Land of the Lost on the TV in my room. My room was pretty cool for a child of the 70s. It had bunk beds, even though I shared a room with nobody, and most kids my age did not have their own TV. The standard white walls were bare. I hadn't discovered posters yet, but every surface was covered with Hot Wheels. The wall inside the closet was pocked with gold pellets from shooting little green army men off the bookshelf. I'd sniped them with my rifle while laying on the top bunk. My personal space was never really clean. Land of the Lost was classic, cheesy 70s children's Saturday morning television. Each episode started by recounting in song the tragic story of a father, along with his son and daughter, who, while going down a river in a yellow inflatable raft, went over a waterfall and into a prehistoric land full of lizard men, Sleestack, monkey children, Bakuni, and dinosaurs, T-Rexes and the like. The son was kind of a tool, but he shared my name, which, unlike my uncle's status, I did hold over my nephews' heads. So at the end of the opening credits, a huge T-Rex named Grumpy would turn, roar, and charge toward the camera. Even though the dinosaur was all claymation, the optic that Grumpy had chomped the camera and had eaten the cameraman was as complete as it was horrifying. Each week, viewers narrowly escaped with their lives. The producers of this television classic obviously never considered the possible consequences of their artistic expression. By today's standards, that was small corn, but to a 7-year-old in 1977, that was some impressive television. Well, Lee, Gary, and I, as young boys will do, used to look forward to the scene when Grumpy would eat the camera, because then we could run around and hide and basically kill some commercial time acting like complete idiots and laughing about it. Linda did not allow us to leave my room, though, which limited our hiding options. I know Kim was getting to do all manner of cool stuff all over the house and could have chosen from 100 different places to hide from Grumpy the T-Rex. But I digress. I believe it was nephew Gary who hid from the T-Rex by crawling under my bed. I ran behind my open bedroom door. Lee escaped to the closet with the pockmarked wall. We always hid in the exact same places, really, so no accounting for imagination, but we'd scream and panic and run to our hiding places every week and then laugh at how silly we looked to each other. So on this fateful Saturday, when I came out from behind the door, no doubt because a commercial on TV had caught my attention, I noticed Gary, who, upon crawling out from under the bed, had in his hand a pair of my dirty underwear. Now, this was no ordinary pair of whitey-tighties. Oh no, that would have been bad enough. My humiliation was complete by the fact that these were part of a package of 6 my grandmother, we called her Meemaw, had given me for the previous Christmas. They were baby blue with paisleys, the kind of paisleys that haven't been seen since the 1970s. Think of a leech with the markings of a brown speckled frog floating through a cloudless boy's side 6 sky. I would wear them to school forever, grateful that nobody ever saw what underwear I was wearing. In fact, I thought that very same thought as I had thrown them under the bed in preparation for my nephew's arrival that day. Too bad I'd forgotten about our limited hiding places from Grumpy the T-Rex. Now the underwear was out and in full view. It was the first time anyone had seen them since Christmas, and no one had ever seen them out of the package except for my mother. Gary yelled, made a funny face. Then, of course, he threw the underwear at my head. While the underwear were in slow motion flight toward my face, I saw Lee look at them and then look at me. I could tell he was about to make the situation more unbearable by adding some finger pointing and laughing. Stupid paisleys. I cut off his revelry by deftly catching the underwear and throwing them at him and his smirk. Ha ha! Now, instead of pointing and laughing, he could share in the humiliation of having dirty paisley and baby blue underwear thrown at him as well. He, of course, grabbed the underwear in midair, flung them back at Gary. Now, instead of two nephews laughing at their uncle, three boys threw a pair of used underwear at each other. Good, clean, gross fun. So, one aspect of 1960s interior design was these light fixtures that looked like square salad plates hanging from the ceiling. They were a smoked white glass with goldish wheat stalks shooting from the center. I'll bet the designer never considered the possibility that those fixtures make it possible for three boys under the age of 10 to get a pair of dirty underwear stuck in them, yet impossible for said three boys to get said pair of dirty underwear out of them. After my blue paisley nightmare had made a circuit or two around the room, the story gets a little fuzzy. I don't remember who the culprit was when the unthinkable occurred. Maybe that's for the best. Okay, I think it was Gary. But on another trip across the room, in the middle of our unbridled laughter, the underwear became lodged in the salad plate mounted on the ceiling. Now, all three of us knew that we would be in big trouble just for throwing the underwear around, let alone getting it stuck in the light. My sister-in-law could be a little strict. Well, that is, except for anything Kim ever did. I guess she had always wanted a daughter or something. And Lord forbid she'd tell my brother, which would have resulted in my nephews being severely punished and my being let off scot-free. My brother never thought I did anything wrong. My nephew's panic-stricken faces looked to their sage uncle for guidance. This was one time where being an uncle was not so cool. I was sure I was supposed to know what to do. I didn't want them to get into trouble, even if I knew I wouldn't. The underwear mocked me from high above. One leg hole dangled, an O of accusation. Blue with paisleys. Sheesh, what had Meemaw been thinking? I thought fast. There had to be something we could use to get them down. I looked around my room and noticed that Gary had knocked off of the bed frame some of the slats of wood that supported the lower bunk. They were each about a yard long, 3 inches wide, and about a half-inch thick. Good American pine. Their purpose was to span the bed frame and support the mattress. I'm sure the designer of the bunk beds would have never considered the purpose I had in mind for that piece of wood. Just as the salad plate light fixture designer never fully thought through his underwear trap. I grabbed the wood slat and started reaching up into the light with the hope to knock down the underwear. As if they had a mind of their own, the unmentionables crawled deeper into the light fixture and closer to the light bulb. I let Lee try since he was a little taller, but it was no use. Gary just looked on in a daze. The leg hole had completely disappeared from view. So it was about that time the commercials were over and a full episode of Land of the Lost was before us. I dismissed the problem by assuring my nephews that I would deal with it later. The underwear were out of sight, which solved the immediate issue of my own embarrassment. We turned off the light, settled in, and watched. None of us even considered washing our hands. After Land of the Lost, it was nap time, except for Kim, of course, and as young boys' minds will do, we forgot all about the underwear. The light was still off. Several days later, I went to ride my bike around the neighborhood. In 1977, 7-year-olds could do that. I only went a few houses down and maybe around one corner, but it seemed like a long way to me. The thought of the dirty baby blue and paisley underwear in my light fixture was a distant memory. I turned back for home, but not, of course, until after I had exceeded the distance that I was supposed to go by several houses. When I came around the corner, I saw three. I'm positive it was three huge fire engines and what must have been 100, okay, maybe not 100, firemen rushing around the house. I stopped on the sidewalk, still several houses away. Gray smoke poured from our open front door. Now, the fire station was about 3/4 of a mile from home. As a child, I had seen it about 100 times. And even as an adult, I'm certain I never, not once, saw 3 fire trucks in that station at one time. That made the Crusty underwear incident at least a 2-alarmer. That's right, the big time. I swear those firemen must have had nothing else to do. I still imagine them sitting around the retirement home today telling other old firemen about the day they answered the call for a pair of burning underwear with paisleys on baby blue. Geez, Meemaw, this was the age of underoos for crying out loud, and this was the best you could do? Aquaman, no complaints. The garage door was open. I saw no flames. It was at that moment I remembered the underwear. and I remembered that before my neighborhood bicycle exploration, I had left on my bedroom light. I pedaled the rest of the way home and executed a well practiced ride to run maneuver in the front yard. My bike rolled to a stop on its own and fell to the grass in disappointment. My mom and my sister were standing in the driveway, worried that I was still inside somewhere because when I approached, my mom hugged me like crazy. She started going on about the wiring in the house and that there must be a fire in the attic somewhere. Firemen were grabbing hoses off of the trucks. The neighbors stood in the front yards, probably wondering what fool thing my father had done now. There was very little noise, though. I could see that accusatory leg hole in my mind. Was there any way I could blame Kim for this? I decided to come clean. So I told my mom that it was not wiring and it was not a fire in the attic. I told her all about the paper airplane that my nephews and I had thrown into the light fixture. She, of course, asked why I hadn't said something sooner, and I told her I had just forgotten about it, although I really just still found it impossible to explain that there was underwear in my light fixture. Whew, what a perfect lie. Some may judge me harshly for lying to my mom that way, but remember, I was only 7. And what were the odds that anyone would find the underwear anyway, right? I mean, they had to be ashes, right? As I finished my elaborate story about the paper airplane, which was 99% the truth, by the way, a fireman came out the front door. He was carrying a slat of wood from under my bed, probably the same one that I had failed to return to its place after trying to spear the leg hole in the salad plate on the ceiling. And on the end of the wood slat hung what was hardly recognizable. It certainly wasn't a paper airplane, but upon closer inspection, just a small patch of baby blue remained unburned. And on that patch of baby blue, one paisley remained unharmed. The fireman had rescued the remains of my charred, crusty underwear. Thanks, Grandma.